Hi class, here's the practice for Wednesday, January 24th, fractions day 2, simplifying fractions. Okay, so before we get into simplifying, let's look at what equivalent fractions are. I ask you to find 3 equivalent fractions for each of these fractions. So that means multiplying the top and the bottom of a fraction by the same number. So if I multiply 1 by 4, for instance, and 4 on the bottom by 4, I'm going to get the equivalent fraction of 1 times 4 is 4, 4 times 4 is 16. So 4/16 is the same value as 1/4. I'm going to multiply it by, you can pick any numbers, I'll multiply it by 2 and 2. So times 2 and times 2, and that's going to be 2. 1 times 2 is 2 on the top, and 4 times 2 on the bottom is 8. And that fraction is also equivalent to 1/4. And maybe I'll do it by 3. So 1 times 3 is 3 on the top, and 4 times 3 is 12 on the bottom. So there are 3 fractions that mean the same exact value as 1/4. I'm going to do the same thing for number 2 and number 3. I'll just do one equivalent fraction for number 2, and then you're going to do 2 more. So I'll take 1/3, and I'm going to multiply that by 4 again, and by 4. So 1 times 4 is 4 on the top, and 3 times 4 is 12 on the bottom. And there's 1. Now you do 2 more by multiplying the top and the bottom by the same number. So watch carefully what I did, and you do it. Okay, and you'll do the same thing for number 3. Okay, number 4, let me get my factor sheet. Okay, so here's my factor pair sheet. Now I'm going to list the factors of 5 here. Now you're going to do the same thing for number 5. I'm doing number 4, you're going to do number 5. So I'm going to list the factors of 5 and look at my factor pair sheet, or you can just use your own memory. I see that we have 1 and 5. That's the only factors I see for 5. In fact, 5 is a prime number. So I'm going to put them in order from smallest to largest, 1 and then 5. Now I'm going to list the factors of 25, and here we have the factors of 25, 1 and 25, and 5 and 5. I'm going to list them in order, so I'm going to start with 1, and then I'm going to list 5, and I'm not going to list 5 twice, I don't need it twice. So 1, 5, and then 25. And there are the factors of 25, and I listed them in order from smallest to largest. Now I'm going to ask, what is the greatest common factor? So which factor does 5 have and 25 have? So if I look, I see there's a 1 and a 1. They share the 1. But that's not the biggest one. We want the biggest. Greatest means biggest. So I want the biggest one. So it looks to me like they share the common number of 5. So 5 is the greatest common factor. Okay. So now you're going to list out all the factors of 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 12. All the factors of 27. 1, 3, 9, and 27. And then you're going to find the biggest one that they share. Okay. All right. Now we're going to simplify these fractions, and that means we're going to divide the fractions by the same number on top and bottom. So we have to look for common factors. So number 6, I see we have 3 on the top, and there's a 1 and a 3 as a factor. And then 6 down here, we have 1, 2, 3, and 6. So if we look at the 2 factors, which one do they share? We have a 1 and a 3, and we have a 1, 2, 3, and a 6. Well, they share the 1, but that's not going to help us at all. What else do they share? They share a 3. That's the one we can use. So we're going to divide the top and bottom by the common factor of 3. And remember, you can divide this top and bottom by the same number, and you'll still have an equivalent fraction. All right, so 3 divided by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 6 divided by 3 is 2, so I get 1/2. Okay, number 7. Let's see. I'll do number 7. Yeah, I'll do number 7. So number 7, we have 9 and 15, so we can look over here at 9 and 15. And what factor do they share between 9 and 15? Do they share a factor in there? I see 1, which we're not going to use. I see 3. They share a 3. And that's the biggest one that they share, right? They share just a 3. So we're going to divide the top and the bottom. 9 has a factor of 3, and 15 has a factor of 3. So we can divide both top and bottom by 3. So I'm going to divide this by 3 and divide this by 3. Well, 9 divided by 3. 9 divided by, 9 divided by 3 is 3. So that goes on top. And 15 divided by 3 is 5. And now we have our fraction has been simplified to 3/5. And there's no more common factors. If you look at 3 and 5, the only factor that they share is 1, and we're not going to use 1. It doesn't help us. So 3 and 5, they don't share anything else. Okay? That's how we're going to be doing these. I'm going to go ahead and do number 9. You're going to do number 8. I'm going to do number 9. So number 9 has 4 and 14. So let's look over here on this side. 4 and 14. What factor do they share? Sometimes they'll share more than 1, and we want to divide by the biggest one. Well, don't use 1. There's a 2 that they share. And that's all they share is 2. So we can divide the top, because, where am I? 4 has a 2 and 14 has a 2. They both share those 2 factors. So divide this by 2 and divide this by 2. So there's a negative here. You're going to need to just rewrite that negative somewhere, okay? Now, 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 14 divided by 2 is 7. So there's my simplified fraction, and there's no more common factors. 2 and 7 have no more common factors. And again, don't count 1. Let's see. I'm going to do number 12. We have 1 and 2/8. So when you do something like this where it's a mixed number, just copy down the 1, just like you would copy down the negative. Just copy down the 1. Now we're going to simplify the 2/8. So we have 1 and 2/8. We're going to make this 1. You're just simplifying the fraction part. So 2 and 8. Now, if you notice, these are both even numbers, so they're both going to be divided by 2. So I'm going to divide this by 2 and this by 2. Alright, so 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So we just simplify the fraction part, and we're done. Let's see. Number 15. You have 10 and 20. Okay, so if I look at 10 and 20, I have to simplify that. 10 and 20. Pull this over. We're simplifying 10/20ths. So 10 and 20. So what common factors do they have? They have a 1 in common, which we won't use. They have a 2 in common. So we could divide both top and bottom by 2. These are both even. We could divide by 2. And that's fine if you divide by 2. Watch what happens if I divide by 2 on the top and divide by 2 on the bottom. Okay. We get 10 divided by 2 is 5. And 10 divided by, you can look at this side to do these too. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. And 20 divided by 2 is 10. So we got an equivalent fraction, but we want the smallest one. They still have a common factor, 5 and 10. Let's look at 5 and 10 on our multiplication sheet. 5 and 10. They have 1. Every number has 1. Ignore that. And then we have 5 here, but we also have a 5 here, so they still share a common factor. So it's not simplified all the way. It has to be simplified completely. So now we need to divide this top by 5 because 5 has a factor of 5, and divide the bottom by 5 because 10 has a factor of 5. So we'll divide both of those by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 10 divided by 5 is 2. Now there's no more common factors between them. So that is completely simplified. So that's what you're going to be doing on these, is looking to find common factors between the two numbers and dividing the top and bottom by that common factor. And then if there's still a common factor, divide it again. Sometimes you're going to want to divide it more than once. And so you'll need to do number 16. Remember, just copy down the 2. This equals 2. And then you're going to simplify, right, that fraction. How about I'll do number 17. You have 12 and 36. Okay. So 12 and 36. Here's 12 and here's 36. So do they have some common factors? Sure. 12 and 36 have 1 in common. Doesn't count. They have 2 in common. They have 3 in common. They have 4 in common. And they have 6 in common. And they have 12 in common. So we want to divide by the biggest one. So when I look at this, I say, okay, 12 is divided by 12. So that's going to be done on the top and the bottom. And 12 divided by 12 is 1. And 36 divided by 12 is 3. And we're all done. We did it the quick way by dividing the top and bottom by the biggest factor. Okay? But if you happen to have divided it by 2 first because you said, oh, I know these are both even, I'll divide them both by 2. That's okay. You'll get 12 divided by 2 is 6 and 36 divided by 2 is 18. But then you just have to do it again. Look, we still have a common factor of 2. So you can do it again. And we get 3 over 6. And then we're almost done. Look, it's not 1/3 yet. 3 and 6 have a common factor. They sure do. 3 and 6. 3 goes into 3, and 3 goes into 6. So we could divide again by 3. So we would divide this by 3 and divide this by 3. And we get 1 over 2. Oh, excuse me. What happened? I did something wrong. Oh, this should be a 9. Whoops. So when I divided this by 2, I got 3. When I divided this by 2, I got 9. So then 3 divided by 3 and 9 have 2 factors that are the same. 3. 3 and 9 have a 3. So I divide both top and bottom by 3. Sorry about that. So this is 1 on the top, and 9 divided by 3 on the bottom is 3. So now it matches. So you can simplify this just by dividing by the greatest common factor right away. Or you can just divide by 2 or 3 and 2 and 3 until you get to the very bottom, where there's no more common factors. And you can also simplify 10 over 8. Even though it's an improper fraction, you can still simplify it by dividing the top and bottom by the common factors. Now, that's what we learned today, and then this is review from on Monday. Changing these into improper fractions. Remember, we have to divide. So we take 10 and we divide it by 3. So this is a little trickier because you have to look at 3 and go, okay, well, look, 3 times 3 is 9. So 3 goes into 10 3 times. It doesn't go in 4 times because this is too big. 12 is too big. So 3 goes into 10 3 times. And another way to do it is like to write it like this, right? So 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. Subtract. How many do we have left? Well, if 3 goes into 3 times 3 is 9. Subtract 9 from 10, we get 1. The remainder is 1. Can you read that? That's a little 1. And that 1 goes up above, and then the bottom is the 3 again. Remember this? We did this on Monday. Let's see. So let's do number 4. So how many times does 10 go into 38? Well, 10 times 1 is 10. 10 times 2 is 20. 10 times 3 is 30. 10 times 4 is 40. That's too big. 40 is too big. So 10 goes into 38 3 times. right? So 3 times 10 is 30. We subtract, and we get 8 left over. So our remainder is 8. So you remember how you write this? These are our wholes. We have 3 wholes, 3 whole numbers. And then the remainder is 8. And that goes on top. And then the parts is 10. Okay, so you divide to get the number of wholes. 10 goes into 38 3 whole times. And then what's left over is 8. Our remainder is 8, and that goes over the parts that the fraction is cut into. Now this is a little tricky because it is not simplified. If you can recognize that both of those are even numbers, you can remember to divide both top and bottom by 2. So to simplify this, you rewrite the 3, and then we have to divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2. If you look at 8 and 10 here on our factor pair sheet, they share, 8 and 10, they share a factor of 2. So this is not simplified because they have a shared factor. So you have to simplify it by dividing by that shared factor. So we get 3 written down, and then 8 divided by 2 is 4, and 10 divided by 2 is 5, and so now we have 3 4/5 instead of 3 8/10, because we want to divide by those common factors and get them out of the top and the bottom. Okay, this one, number 5, you're going to have to do the same thing. You're going to divide 12 into 20 and find your remainder and write your mixed number, and then you have to simplify the fraction part. Okay, so let's just do one more of these to help you, because if you're watching this, you might need a little extra help, right? So number 3 is 7/5. So how many times does 5 go into 7? 5 goes into 7 one time. 1 times 5 is 5, and subtract, and we get 2. So our remainder is 2, okay? So we got one whole, but we have 2 left over. So the 2 left over goes on top, and it was divided into fifths, so it's done. Now you're going to do the same things for these. And let's look at the second page. Changing these mixed numbers into improper fractions. This requires multiplication and addition. Remember, we take 10, we take how many parts that the object has been cut into, and multiply it times the whole number. So 10 times 3 is going to be 30. So that's 10 times 3 is 30. And then you're going to add the 4. So that's 34 on top, and it was divided into 10 parts. So 3 4/10 means the same thing as 34/10. Okay, let's do number 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 plus 2 is 10. 10 goes on the top, and we put 4 on the bottom. Remember, 4 times 2 plus 2. And then you're going to do the rest, because you can do that. And 31 and 32, you're going to draw a picture to represent 5/8. So remember, this bottom number is how many pieces that this is cut into. So you're going to have to divide this into 8 pieces, equal size 8 pieces. And then how many do we want? We want to shade in 5 of them. So draw that picture there. So I'll do one to show you what I mean. Let's see, I do 3/4. I'm going to draw a picture, and I want 3/4. This is what you're going to do, okay? And you don't have to write this down, but you can if you want to. So I'm not doing this one. I want you to do this one, but watch how I do this one. The bottom number is how many pieces it's cut into, so I say 4 pieces, so I'm going to cut it like this. There's 4 pieces, and they're about the same size. 1, 2, 3, 4. So then I have 3 on the top. I want to take 3 of those. So 3 of the 4s. So 1, 2, 3. And so I've just drawn a picture of 3/4. So you're going to draw a picture of 5/8, following the same idea. Cut this into 8ths, and then you're going to shade in 5. And then I'm not going to do this one, but I'll do a different one. Let's see, I'll do 1 in 4ths again, because that's quick for me to do, real quick. If I have this picture right here, and I shade in all of this, that's a whole one, and let's say I'll shade in one of these. Well, that means I have one whole one, right? There's one whole. And I have one extra fourth. This is cut into fourths. So I have 1 1/4. So that's my mixed number. Now to write it as an improper fraction, I'm going to count how many fourths we have altogether. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 fourths. So remember, this is your improper fraction, and this is your mixed number. So you're going to do the same thing up here. Represent this picture with how many. This has been cut. You figure it out. If you have a question, you can always ask me in class. Okay, and I'll see you next class.